Welcome to Unraveling Success. Thank you for joining me. This is our year of 2026 where we have gone unfiltered and just pulling forward a lot of lessons learned over the last couple of years and sprinkling in some of my own learns as well. So today I want to talk a little bit about a topic that's just been super interesting to me over the past probably I don't know, 5 years or so. One of in the business world, I think we were seeing kind of a new wave of leadership, and it's a lot less of like kind of a patriarchal top-down system, and it's a lot more of a coming up in servanthood leadership and just a new modern day leadership that's a lot more human centric and people centric. A lot more empathy and coming alongside to lift up type of feel. But in a mastermind that I'm in, we were having a conversation about this leadership shift and what it takes of leaders now versus what it used to take and adapting and all of that type of thing. I think it takes a lot more skills as a leader to lead the way that modern day leadership would demand of us. And I think that it's a good shift. But in my mastermind, someone brought up a topic that I just thought was really brilliant. And they talked about how, the shift is great with being more human centric, that type of thing, not looking at your team as like a cog in a wheel or like really just the importance of humans. They brought up that the danger in modern day leadership is a lack of accountability. And that really resonated with me and it caused me to stop and it caused me to look within my organization to see like what do accountabilities look like. So I thought what I would do is share what that looks like in my organization. So after that mastermind, I looked and I did have some things that were accountability measures that were built into to my organization. Since that time, I've added more, and accountability within my organization looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to explain what we do and how it adds a layer of accountability and how it doesn't necessarily, it's not a one size fits all. Like for me, with Aspire in specific, like since I started from scratch, Aspire's really has like my fingerprints all over it. So it's, it hasn't been passed down generations, so it has different leadership styles. We're not big corporate, we are a team of 11. Um, and so we have a very common thread, a common feel throughout our entire organization. So the advantage for me in that standpoint is that I have a really cohesive kind of team personality. And so different measures will work for different enterprises depending on the dynamics of your specific business. So I'm not saying this is one size fits all, but I think that probably um, when I'm going through some of the things that I'm doing, it'll resonate with a variety of people in different ways because we are doing quite a few different things. So I do think one thing you should do is if you are really leaning into the new era of modern day leadership and very human centric and team based type of approaches, really making sure you're not just, you know, losing your accountability measures because performance still is a really big deal because we are all in business too. We have people to support, we have families to support and that can't get lost. And so it's important to keep that in mind. So it's a balance. So first, like one thing I want to talk about is what does an organization look like when there's not accountability measures within the organization. So here are some of the key indicators. So it is overly feelings driven without challenging like patterns. So if you have employees with patterns or that type of thing, it's overly driven by feelings and not willing to challenge the patterns that are right in front of us. And it avoids hard conversations oftentimes in order to keep peace. It confuses compassion with rescuing. So swooping in and saving an employee that's like constantly falling behind or struggling without expecting them to rise to the occasion and giving them the tools and skills to expand their capacity and rise to the level of expectation that they should be at. And removing accountability, it stunts growth. And actually, one of the things I tell my team often is that accountability is an act of love. It means that I am not willing to let you perform at a lesser degree than what I know that you're fully capable of. So if you frame it in that way, it makes you realize that it's actually just because I care y- enough to not let you sink to mediocre. And that is because you care about someone and you see their potential and you know that they can do and be more and you want to see them realize their full potential. That's a satisfying feeling for everybody. Everybody wins in those moments. And it prioritizes comfort over transformation. So again, if you're not willing to challenge a team member, if whether it's attitude or whether it's poor performance with their capacity, it stunts people. And so um I wanted to just share some of the ways. So those are indicators that you might need to add more accountability into your infrastructure. So what does it look like in our infrastructure in particular? So the personality of my team is I have a rather low conflict, harmonious team. They're like 99% of us, that's how we're wired. So because it's the majority of us, that's kind of how it feels. It's very team driven. Um, there's a lot of trust within my organization and a lot of collaboration. And there can be uh, an avoidance of having hard conversations, which is something that we've leaned really heavily into. But we do it in certain ways that because we've built the trust that we have, we're able to have hard conversations, and everybody knows that those conversations are going to happen privately. They're not going to happen publicly, and that I will always assume their best intent. I will never go into a conversation assuming the worst of them. And I think when you can approach things in that way, then it brings down the walls and the excuses, and you get straight to the heartstrings. You can really have some meaningful conversations that can move the needle forward. So, first for us, measure of accountability. Um, so, we have defined core values, and when we hire, we actually have people sign off on our core values. We talk about our core values all the time, and it is like a thread of who we are. So, as an accountability measure, people know that if there is an actual violation of core values, like a significant violation, that is grounds for firing immediately. Our core values and who we are is not going to be an area where I see any gray. It is a black and white area. And, one of those core values is team. So you need to be good to and for your team. So if I find that there is somebody within our organization that is being icky to their team, for me, I've brought it through the paces and it's not changing, and I know the heart of it. That's To me, it doesn't matter how great you are with clients or what your knowledge base is. That to me is a complete no go. And our team knows that. More importantly, they have heard me more than talk about it. They've seen me make decisions around it. And so I think that when you're willing to make decisions that tie into what you say your core values are as an organization, then your team trusts you because you are being who you say that you are, and you're showing that your values aren't just something that you say with your mouth, but your values are something that you're willing to make decisions behind and you're willing to make hard choices. So I think that's part of accountability, because almost in a very weird way, reverse accountability, because you're saying I'm going to say these words, but I'm going to hold everybody to that standard, but I'm going to hold myself to holding others at that standard. Not that I'm going to say something, but I'm not actually going to do anything to uphold the standards that I'm setting. So I think it's a way to build trust, but it's also a way to hold yourself accountable as a leader to doing the things that you say you're going to do. Okay. So a couple of things that we do for accountability is we do 2 check-ins per day. We do one at 8:30 and then one at 1:30. And there is this idea of accountability that works really well for my team just because we are so team-based and collaborative, and we are low conflict. So nobody's wanting to like dump on each other, or we'll ask for help, but it's not something that someone's, trying to like slough off and dump work on somebody's. They are going to try to get through as much as they can on their own. So the check-in at 8:30 in the morning, we have an agenda. But the number one thing that I do is check to make sure, is the volume on your back too much? Do you have any questions or barriers to success? You need to have planned your day. You need to have looked to see if there's anything like you might need for training or questions, that type of thing. And then also, we have a way that you need to plan your day. So we have like a daily startup that you need to have run. So you need to review your frog, your top three priorities, what questions that you might have on some of your tasks if you need training, if there's a barrier to success. And each person's given 2 minutes to run through that. So should be fast. It's not something that should linger because time is of the essence, time's money. And so what that does is that social pressure makes the team accountable to planning their day. They have to say in front of everybody what they're doing, what my plan is, and then explain it to everybody. So that's a gentle accountability measure in front of your peers. And it forces us to make sure we're planning our days, which is vitally important. Our second check-in is at 1:30. For us, who knows what phone call we're going to pick up and what might, I always say the best way to make God laugh is to tell him your plans. So the planning and the process is of vital importance, but we don't know what's going to come in the rest of the day that might reshuffle these priorities. And so we're looking to see, are you still good with your work volume? And then we have a service promise that to our clients. And so that second meeting at 1:30 is to make sure we're all positioned to say, my service promise is complete. Yes, I've honored my service promise. And then we just go through the agenda. We shuffle around work if we need to make sure that everybody's able to get out of work on time. I do not see it a badge of honor if people are staying after work, because we are not robots. We are humans, and I want people to live fully. I want them to take their lunches and don't want them to feel shackled to their desk. So also we go through a planning process. In the fall, we start in October. We have a very set planning process. So everybody has very clearly defined goals. And they have a one-sheeter for the entire year of quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, and what is expected of them. I always say to be clear is to be kind. And so they're clear goals set that we've both agreed upon, and I hold them accountable to that. So we have once a month, I sit down and do a coaching call with every person on my team. We sit down for 20 minutes together. We talk about personal stuff, but we review their goals. What's your plan? What's working? What's not working? What do you need help with? And I get in the trenches with them, and we work things out so that they can know that I'm supporting them and I'm with them, but also they are coming to me with their results and where they're at. So they know that have expectations of them. And then we have a quarterly meeting where we all then review our goals. And so they're all put forward. Again, there's a little bit of social pressure in there, right? So their goals are going to be shown to their whole team. And so that makes it very impactful when you're showing everybody like, oh, here's my goals and here's what I've done. Just it's that's that subtle feeling that just drives you. Yeah. We have, like most other organizations, our reviews, we just do them annually. But we have a number of forms that are filled out, me and them, to kind of compare notes. And that acts as an accountability measure. One of the favorite things that we've done over the past 2 years is adding a peer 360 review. And so once a year, we send out our 360 review, which is your peers reviewing you and how you're doing. And it is anonymous, and we get some really, really good feedback. And so I actually have that done before we do annual reviews, and it's part of that review process. So, and I will tell you, in the time that we've done it, I've only had one where I was like, oh my gosh, this person their peers are uniformly roasting them, but they're very honest and not in a mean way. But this particular situation, everybody was saying the same thing, and so it was very. I'll just tell you, as a leader, it was a very difficult review to navigate, but the message was very clear, and that person um, was let go not long after this review, and for a variety of other reasons, even outside the peer reviews. So I think that, when you have these organizations that are really team driven, and transparent, and that everybody's rowing in the same direction. The people that are not rowing in the same direction, the people that you can't hold accountable and are not willing to raise to the standards of the organization, they weed themselves out. And so let them do that. And then I would just also say, from an accountability measure, as it ties into my last statement, is knowing when it's time to release somebody back into the workforce. And one of the things that I've started to do probably 2 years ago now, when I realized this isn't the right fit, it would be irresponsible for me as a leader to allow this person to stay planted in a place they should not grow. I look at their strengths, I look at their assessments that I've done on them, and then I try to give them suggestions of places to look or places where I feel like they might find success. And if there are people that I know, I'll reach out to them and even open some doors for them if it's a person that I can vouch for their character. Just it might not be a good fit within the organization for whatever reason. And as a leader, when you're able to, you know, bridge that gap and move them on and open doors for them, it just kind of like, these are not these are hard decisions to make, and it just kind of soothes it for everybody. So I've had some really awesome successes in doing that. I've probably done it 4 times now. So I just wanted to also just say, like, for your team and the good of your team, it is so important that when we do realize that there is somebody that's on our team that's not the right fit, whether it be that they can't rise to the level of capacity or capabilities that we need them to, or it's core value violations, the importance of making a decision to, like, bless and release that person from your organization. It's really important. I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in the past, which I've learned from moving forward, is holding on for too long and wanting somebody, realizing somebody's potential, but realizing that on the flip side is understanding they need to be as invested in realizing their potential as you are in seeing and helping them realize their potential as well. So I would say for me, accountability is key in our organization, but it doesn't need to look as like finger pointing push down. It can be come alongside, and it can be done as almost like a little bit of social pressure. It can be done in, I always say, coach in private, praise in public. So when it's done privately, you're helping that person's dignity stay intact, and then doing it right, having the hard conversations right away. So you're not running into situations where somebody feels like they're walking on eggshells because you're gathering up all these grievances, and then all of a sudden you're going to come to them and land a bomb on them. So they're just always kind of looking out of the corner of their eye or feel like they're walking on eggshells. So I would say from an accountability standpoint, those are some of our hows within my organization. There's plenty of others out there. But I just wanted to share my experience and some of the things that we found success in.